Our final modification to the Greet Friend application introduces the use of a list activity within the application, which enables us to display a list of friends. You can then select any of those friends from the list, and then the application will display the greeting for that friend. So to do the modification now, let's go step by step. First and foremost, we will introduce a list of friends into the strings.xml file as a resource. Now, this approach illustrates the use of resources and keeping the resources separate from the code. Now, we can see that when we introduce the resource in the strings.xml file, we can go ahead and modify the list of friends within this XML file without having to touch the actual Java code, and the application can display other list of friends if required. So to do that, let's introduce a new resource called as a string array resource and give it a name as friends, and we'll introduce a list of items here. Each item represents a friend's name, so let me introduce 4 different friends' names: John, Paul, and notice how I am leveraging the suggestions from Android Studio to automatically fill in the code as far as possible. This minimizes the chances of typing in syntax errors from our side. So John, Paul, George. Now you can see where I am going with this. So these are the names of the 4 Beatles. Now, once we have completed the string array, then we can use this string array resource and import it within our code to prepare an array of strings. Now, if we need to modify the list of friends, we can simply come into the strings.xml and then modify the list of friends here without having to modify the Java code in any way. So let's save this change and then move on to the next step. In the next step, we are going to introduce a new layout file. This layout file specifies how the items in our list are going to be displayed on the user interface. So to do so, let's go under Resources and Layout subfolder and say New Layout Resource File, and we'll give this file name as friend item, and then the root element will be text view, and let's click OK at this point, and you will see the layout file coming into existence. At this moment, you can't see anything on the screen. Let's change some properties of this text view. First and foremost, let's give it a default text value. So go to the properties, and then under text, we will simply type in friend name, just so that we can see where the text is being displayed on the screen. I want this text to be displayed right in the middle of this layout. So to do that, I'm going to go in and change the gravity values. So go to the gravity property, and then we'll say center vertical and center horizontal. So that way it'll bring this text view right into the middle of this whole space here. In addition, let's give it a little bit of padding around this text so that the display is pretty clear. So for padding, I'm going to say all the padding will be, say, 20 dp. dp is density independent pixels. So this is one way of specifying the space around the text view. So we have seen that for text sizes we have used SP, and for other properties we are going to use DP to specify. So this way the specification of this property is independent of the pixel density of the screen, so it'll automatically adapt to different screen densities. So let's give it a padding of 20 dp, and then we'll save the modifications here. Let's also increase the text size to a slightly larger value. So I will give it a text size of 24 sp so that the text is a bit more larger to view on the screen. So with these changes, let's save the layout file. We will see the use of this in the list activity later on in code. The last set of modifications will be introduced in main-activity.java file. So let's open main-activity.java file, and then we will replace this public class main activity, and we will extend list activity instead of activity. So let's go ahead and modify that to list activity and import that. And you don't need to implement this view on click listener, so we can go ahead and delete that part. You will see that if you are using a list activity, you don't need to implement that part. And there'll be some more modifications to the actual code here. Within the onCreate method, let's go in and make some changes to the code. The list activity comes with its own layout. The layout is a fixed layout, which is a list view, and it'll display a list of items on the screen. So we don't need to do the set content view, so I'm going to remove that part. We no longer have this greet button, so I'm going to remove that part also. So we have cleared out the code from onCreate, and then we will introduce the new code in the onCreate method. I'm going to introduce a new variable here, which is a string array. With the name names. Now within the code, we will now import the string array from the string resource file that we have already typed in. So to do that, we will type in names equal to get resources, get string array, and then we need to supply the ID of that string array. So the ID of that string array is r.array.friends. So we saw that we gave the string array the name as friends. So now with this construct, we will be constructing an array of strings from the string array resource that we have already introduced in the strings.xml file. Now you see how we can keep the code separate from the resources. So we don't need to come in and change this code in any way if we're going to change the list of our friends. All that we need to do is go and edit the strings.xml file and then introduce a new list of friends there. After this, we need to specify that this list of names should be displayed in the list view that is going to be displayed on the user interface for this application. So to do that, we will say set list adapter, and we need to supply an array adapter here as the parameter for this list adapter. So to supply the parameter here, so we will say new array adapter. So this is the standard array adapter that is part of what Android supplies. An array adapter takes a string array and then converts it into a form that the list view within Android can make use of when it is constructing the list of items to be displayed on the screen. So this array adapter is of the type string type, and the three parameters for this array adapter construction is this, which is this activity as the context. Then the second parameter is the layout file. So we would say r.layout.friend item. So basically we are specifying here that each of those names should be displayed on the screen using this layout as the method of constructing the layout on the screen. So that's the second part. And the third part is the actual array of strings that we're going to supply to this array adapter. So this is names. So with this, we complete the modification to the onCreate method of the main activity. Our final modification to main activity.java involves the code that will respond when the user selects one of the items from the list. So to do that, we need to implement a method called onListItemClick. So let me go ahead and then say right click there and say generate, and we will say override methods, and then we will select the method called onListItemClick here. Okay, so this is the method that we need to override to make use of it within the code. Okay, so the onClick method is no longer needed, so I'm going to delete this part of the onClick method. This is no longer needed here. Now you will also notice that the code will now get simplified because the name of the friend will be automatically retrieved from the names array that we have used to construct the list view. So I'm going to delete all this code. This is no longer needed for me. And similarly, I will delete the rest of the code at the bottom. That is no longer needed. But this part of the code I will be needing inside my ListItemClick method. So I'm going to shift all this code into my list item and then make some modification to that. So let me go ahead and then cut and paste it into my list view. So when this onListItemClick method is called, it is receiving 4 parameters here. It says list view L, view V, int position, and long ID here. So from these, we will be able to identify which particular item in the list has been clicked. In particular, the value, the long ID, specifies which of the items in the list was clicked. So if you have a list of 10 items and then you selected the 5th item in the list, so the long ID will return the fact that you selected the fifth item in the list. So we're going to make use of that in order to construct our message to be sent to the show message activity. So within the code, we will come in here and then instead of the friend name, I'm going to replace the friend name with names and the position being the ID here. And then because ID is long, I have to cast it to integer value so that it can be properly used within the code. And then save the changes here. Finally, when the app is deployed to the emulator and starts running, you will see this screen. Here we have the list of friends being displayed. So if you click on any one of those friends, then the message corresponding to the friend will be displayed on the screen. So you can always go back and click and select another friend. And so that is how the list view enables you to display a list of friends and select one of them, and it displays the message corresponding to that friend.